Jumi Apsua. We are here at the end of week 4, and I have officially taught with every teacher. So my teaching week, I have 9 counterparts, which is technically a lot. Most people in the high school are gonna have 2, maybe 3 counterparts. And then they recommended maybe in the primary school having 5-ish, but my school has 9 teachers and 9 grades, or 9 classes who are capable of learning English. So 3 4th grade, 3 5th grade, and 3 6th grade. And they all meet for about an hour and 20 minutes once a week. So because it's once a week, for me it seems pretty easy to be able to work with all the different teachers. And we lesson plan as a group, so I'm actually only planning for 3 classes a week that I teach each of 3 times. So I'll lesson plan. Some days we'll meet, the 4th grade team will meet for an hour, 5th grade meet for an hour, 6th grade meet for an hour. And there's so much diversity in what's going on in the classroom. So not every class has its own personality, right? That is just how kids work together. That's how people who mesh into a big group, they just have their own things going on. So I've got 9 different personalities of students that I am working with. I have 360 students in total, and they made name tags for me this week, some of them, so I can kind of try and learn some names, or at least call on people by names, and embarrass myself when I can't pronounce them correctly. But as I've mentioned before, I have some smart level classes, or some higher achiever students, and then the slower students are all grouped together in another class. So it kind of goes A, B, C based on the student's skill level. And I'm learning to work with that. So for instance, grade 6, some of the students are able to read in the higher level classes, and other students are not so much able to read. So I think in the slower class, I might have to derail from the book a little bit or a lot of it and teach them how to read first before we get too far into the rest of the material. That's what I talked with my counterpart for that class today, and I think for next week that's kind of the goal we're gonna have, is helping these students learn how to read, because 6th grade A knows how to do it, right? So we went over a conversation. They would say, one student says part A, the other student says part B, and if they get lost, they can look at the board and figure out what to say. A lot of the kids in Group C were not able to do that. So there is the skill level, but then also just the dynamics and personality. So for instance, in my 4th grade classes, we played a hot potato game. And in one class, they pass to the person next to them, and then to the person next, and then maybe the person behind, but they're handing the ball to each other, and they're very quiet as they're doing it. They're having a good time, but it's very controlled, it feels like. Disciplined, I suppose. Whereas one of the other classes, absolute ruckus. They were screaming, I could barely hear myself counting, and they were throwing the ball all over the room, which was fun. It was a lot of fun. But as you can see, 2 completely different personalities. So that is what kind of my observation of the class and the children is. Similarly, each teacher has their own personality in the classroom. So a lot of the teachers maybe let me take over and do most of the teaching. They'll write the translations in Khmer for me, because I don't know how to do that. And then in other classes, some of the teachers like to be a little more active and maybe kind of split the roles. And today one of the teachers almost entirely took over, and I led just one part of the activity. So which is fine. You know, I'm fine with all the teaching styles. Essentially, it is their classroom, and ultimately, by the end of the 2 years, they should be teaching most of it. But it makes sense for at least the first 6 months to a year where I'm doing a lot of the teaching, and they can observe and see and learn from a native English speaker, but then ultimately be taking more and more charge of the classroom and yeah, doing the thing, because they're gonna be doing it once I'm gone. So either way's fine, you know? It's like I said, it's the different personalities of the teachers that I'm working with. And then similarly, the dynamics of the lesson planning. So 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade teachers all have a different dynamic. For instance, 5th grade, we lesson planned today. And by we lesson planned, I mean they had already put together a lesson plan, and they let me look over it to review and see what I thought about it. Whereas the other two, we kind of build the thing together. 6th grade, really quick. It's like boom, boom, boom. And then 4th grade is very much, we follow the thing. There's like a, hold on. Let me get my thing. So there's kind of this lesson planning rubric that we got in PST, and we've been mostly trying to follow that. They went to a conference as well. The primary school teachers did, and they got a very similar lesson planning rubric, and so we've been kind of trying to follow that best we can in the 4th grade one. 6th grade we follow it too, but 6th grade's like very quick. It's like boom, 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 you got this in and out. At 4th grade, it takes a lot, takes more time, but I kind of like that it takes a little more time. Either way is fine. It's just, it's interesting noticing the different ways everybody does the thing. And then I'm just there, you know, facilitating. So that is the classroom. It's been a lot of fun. Very excited to be fully teaching now. Additionally, I've been integrating into the school more. So on breaks, first of all, I have my own classroom. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. It's pretty exciting. It's not typical of the schools that other people are working in, from what I understand. I know there's a few other teachers who have their own classroom, but usually they'll be floating from classroom to classroom. But I get my own space. And so during office hours, I'll be there studying Khmer or doing some other things like preparing lessons or materials. Peace Corps wants us in the school 6 hours a day, so typically I'm teaching 3, and then I will show up for 3 hours to kind of work on Khmer or prepare materials, lesson planning, that sort of thing. So when I'm in there and I have a break, or when the students have a break, they all come to my classroom. Not all of them, but there's a big group of students who like to come and watch The Foreigner. At least that's how it felt the first couple weeks or so. It was like I was a zoo attraction. They would literally stand outside the room and look and just stare at me, which was uncomfortable, to say the least, at first. And slowly, they started warming up to me. You know, there was a group of boys at one point who were grabbing their friend and dragging him and trying to put him as close as they could to me, and then they all run away as if I'm like, I don't know, some kind of toxic disease thing. But I started talking to him, and then I start talking to him in Khmer, and they're like, oh, you know, he knows a little bit of Khmer. And that helped break down the barrier, and now kids come in and they just circle my desk and they ask me questions, and I don't understand all of them, but I do my best, and I teach them little bits of English, and they understand a little bits of the English, and it's a work in progress. But like I said, they started warming up to me, which is cool. Feels good. Yeah. Also this week, I was invited with some of my teacher friends to a festival, is what it's called. It's kind of like a celebration for the parents. We got some nice looking invitations. They looked like this. It was a very formal thing. And I didn't know what it was at first. I asked and they told me and I didn't know what it meant, so I just like, I'm gonna show up to this thing and we'll figure it out. It was a celebration for the parents, and teachers were invited as well. I think it's kind of like a kids saying thank you celebration, but it wasn't put on by the kids. I'm not entirely sure, but it was like a thank you for parents, like a showing gratitude to parents kind of thing. But we got to go, so I went. We ate some food. It was porridge, baba, and then listened to some music there, which was pretty cool. It was the traditional Khmer music being played, and everybody looked really nice. And then I went home. Yeah, so that was Friday. It's always an adventure here. You know, I wondered, would eventually my weeks just even out and kind of like I'd be in a routine and doing the same stuff over and over and over again. So far that hasn't been the case. It's only been 4 weeks, but that has not been the case. This is always some kind of new adventures going on. Speaking of adventure, on Sunday I had myself an adventure. So outside of the community, well, outside of the city, I guess it's still in my community, but there's Mount Tampur, which I think is the 3rd highest mountain in Cambodia, and I have been fixing to climb it since I got here. I can see it from my room. You can probably see it too. Let's see. That's the mountain, if you can see it. So I was trying to get on top of that, and I did not. But I think I found the trail to do so. So basically, I got up early on a Sunday. I rode my bike to the trailhead. The bike ride was 30 minutes. It was hot and it kicked my butt, but I got there and I wasn't giving up. The road up, the trail up, was so steep. My friend Ben had done this before with another friend, and he said basically they don't use switchbacks in this country. It's just straight up. And that was the experience. It was tough. But I went up pretty steep hill, straight up and down, and eventually I got up to a top point, kind of, and then the trail started descending. And I thought, okay, it's gonna descend a little and then wrap back around, but it just descended and kept going. So I was like, all right, I must have missed a turn somewhere. So I went back and I tried to find where I missed a turn, but I didn't find anything. So I was like, I guess I'm just gonna trust this, keep going down this mountain. And I did. And it did not take me back up anywhere. But I did find kind of the valley behind the mountain, which was very, very pretty. And then I found a little river spot. So I sat down, I hung out at the river for a little bit, dipped my toes in the water, and basically after that I started hiking back, and I said, you know what, it's been a good morning. I didn't find the way to the top of the mountain, but I guess this is fine. I feel like it was a successful adventure anyway. So I'm heading back. I start going down the really steep hill on the way back, and then I do see this other little trail that kind of juts off into the woods a little. And so I follow it, and it leads to another big trail that goes straight up the mountain. So now I follow this trail all the way up to what is a little monk village up at kind of the halfway point of the mountain, maybe. And I would have been very shocked if I didn't know already that this existed, because Ben went with somebody else, as mentioned previously, and he got here and he told me about it. So I knew what to be expecting when I got here. And I talked with the monks a little bit. they directed me to where I should go if I want to get on top of the mountain. And the monk told me this trail goes this way, goes to like a waterfall is what I got. And then he said, if you want to go up the mountain, you got to turn left somewhere. I never found the left turn, but I did find the waterfall. And the waterfall trail basically follows this pipe. So they've got this 50-meter pipe that goes to the waterfall. And I think, that's what gives the water to their little village there. And it was a very crude trail. It was definitely not well maintained. I had to crawl under some logs at some point. But it was walked enough because obviously they probably go back and forth and have to do something with the hose every once in a while. And the fact that I could see the hose, I was like, all right, this is something, this goes somewhere. So I followed it 50 meters or so, and then I found basically this waterfall area. It was kind of the riverbed of a waterfall. We're in the dry season now, so it wasn't much going on, but it was still really pretty and fun to kind of hike around. So I did that, and then I came back to the monk village, and then they were like, hey, come eat with us, like come hang out. So they gave me a bunch of bananas, they told me to rest, and they fed me coffee, a little Nesquik packet, and a cup of ramen noodles. And usually I would not eat things from a package. I try to stay away from processed food, but when the monk on a mountain offers you a box of noodles and a bag of coffee, you're not gonna say no. So I enjoyed that with the monks. And then we had some conversation. There's this way of speaking Khmer that's very, very slow and like thoughtful, and it's very helpful for somebody who's learning Khmer. And some people have that touch, like they can speak it slow enough and clear enough that people who are learning the language are able to understand. And this guy had that touch, and it was great, because we were able to talk a little bit. And he asked me, what am I doing here? I told him I'm teaching Pramali. He thought I was from Phnom Penh maybe. He was like, that's great. He showed me this Italian guy that he had met that came up there at one point. I asked if they were Buddhist. I said, Sangsa Preya Put, Sangsa Preya Put, and they didn't understand what I was saying. So I said, Bong At Nawat Sangsa Preya Put. I think I'm saying, do you practice Buddhism? And then one of the ladies was like, oh no, Sasna. Sasna means like religion. So what I meant to say was, Bong Aknawat Sasna Preya Put. Do you practice Buddhism? What I was asking instead is, Buddha your girlfriend, basically. Sangsa is girlfriend. So we had a good laugh about that. But yes, they're Buddhists. And they showed me a mantra that they like to do. They let me record it onto my phone so that I can also have this mantra if ever I want to listen and meditate, which they recommended to me. And then they told me to go lay in a hammock for a little bit. So I laid down and took a nap for about a half an hour. They walked off to one of their little buildings, and I heard them chanting this mantra that they showed me, and then they got into meditation. And at that point, I felt rested enough to leave, so I got up and I walked back down the mountain. And I got all the way to my bicycle, and I realized my keys were not in my pocket, which meant one of two things. Either I left them back up on the mountain, they fell out of my pocket in the hammock, which has happened to me before, or I never took them out of my bike lock, which was the case, and I was very grateful. So I got to my bike, keys were in the bike lock, which has also happened a few times, and I took them out, got back on my bike, and then rode 30 minutes back home. Then I got to bed with Ben that evening, and we enkoid langed, which means hung out basically. We got some food, we got some tea, and then I went home. Oh, I bought some new clothes because I needed some more clothes for school. I've only got like 3 shirts that I can wear. So I bought a new white shirt and a black pair of pants. I was very excited to do a little clothes shopping. Eventually, I'm gonna have a school uniform. The school directors told me that they've basically ordered it. So that means it's being made. I think it has to be tailor-made. I don't think you can just buy school uniforms in a store, and it has to be made in Phnom Penh. So I'm waiting on it to be created in Phnom Penh, and then eventually it'll come. At least that's what I understood from the conversation. Yeah, but until then, I've got 4 shirts now and a few pairs of pants that I'm just rolling with. And then finally, when I got home, my folks have a ton of bananas. So last week, a tractor showed up to the house, dropped off 1,000,000 bananas. It was not actually 1,000,000, but it was a lot of bananas. And we've been eating some of them. I assume they sold a bunch of them. And with what has been left, me and my Mai peeled them, and she put them in these trays, and then she took them outside. And so they've been sitting outside now for a couple days. And I don't know exactly what's happening, but to be determined. It sounds like it's gonna be little sun-dried banana snacks, which I'm looking forward to because I love bananas. Yeah, so that has been week 4. It's been a pretty eventful week. I'm looking forward to week 5. Pretty stoked on what's going on out here in Cambodia. Thank you again for watching, and have a good week wherever you are.